This is the District 2 Sports Podcast. We're on a part one of our ODAC basketball season preview. We're joined by my alma mater, Eastern Mennonite University, head basketball coach, Coach Melvin Felix in his seventh year. Coach, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to see how it goes. But thank you so much for having me here.
And I should say seventh season as the head coach, but you've been there for quite a long time since 2011 as an assistant as well. So you were assistant coach in 2011, got the head coaching position in 2018. What was that feeling like for you as an assistant getting the head coach position?
That's a big question right there. That was very exciting. It's something that as an assistant you always want it to happen. You're working towards it. And like you said, I was an assistant for a long time, 7 years. A lot of long days, hours, recruiting, making connections, all that kind of good stuff that assistants go through. But when it happened, I still remember the day that happened, when they actually offered me the job. It was actually my birthday as well, so that's why it'd be hard to forget. But I remember calling my mom
Wow.
and talking about it, and and saying, hey, like it happened, right? And she's like, no way, like all those emotions. It was a one-on-one, just me and her. And I remember I was parked outside my apartment, sitting in the car, and just like, all the emotions that come with that, and the hard work, and all the years away from my family as well. I've been gone for 15, 16 years. So having that moment was great, but then at the same time, it was the thought of like, all right, now it's here, but we still got to get after it, and it's not just we got here and it's over with.
Before I let Big Greg take over for going to last year's schedule and everything, but I did want to mention that you are a Roanoke graduate, right? You played basketball at Roanoke College as well, so you had some ODAC kind of feels to it as well before you became an assistant there at EMU.
Yeah. So I was at Roanoke 20 so 07 to 11. And I also, played high school at Salem High School,
Wow.
which is right down the street there, for 3 years. But originally I'm from Puerto Rico, and I came over as an exchange student in high school. Stayed with a great family in Salem. The Satterfields really helped me and guided me through a lot of those big decisions in high school and college. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity. I had two great coaches, and Coach Smithers, then Coach Garst, who's also a Hampton-Sydney alum. And then at Roanoke, I played under Coach Moyer, coaching legend. I had a lot of good coaches, a lot of good guidance. And then obviously with us, when you were with us at EMU, we had Coach Dean and another great coach. And it's just, I've had a lot of good guidance, and, we're just trying to make it happen again here at EMU.
All right, Coach. As you see, our host leaves the difficult questions to me, and he's got to save face and keep the good guy hat on. So I guess I'll attack it first. Um,
Sure.
he and I and his younger brother Devin, we consider the ODAC as the SEC of Division Three. And as of yesterday, I was informed that that stands for basketball, football, and baseball. So the guy up
Wow.
there, yeah, he tells me that every day. So he has to rub that in, being in Jacksonville, Florida. But listen, this is kind of a twofold question. I sat back and I looked at your record last year, and then I look at this stretch. I mean, you guys are going to play talent year in and year out, no doubt, and it just seems like it comes right in between in within your schedule. So I look
Hmm.
at this stretch. You played Radford, of course, last year, early in the season, and then from
Hmm.
January 3rd to January the 13th, you played number 23 Macon, you play number 3 Guilford, you play number 20 Wesleyan, and then you play number 1 Hampden Sydney. How
Hmm.
in the world do you get those guys to play or get up for every one of those games? I mean, that's got to be one of the toughest stretches in college basketball history.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the ODAC is. It's just, when I was playing, it was the same. You had EMU in the top 25, Guilford in the top 25, Macon in the top 25. Who am I missing? And Wesleyan in the top 25. So like you're gonna have those stretches, but I think that's the beauty of the conference as well is, hey, like there's no easy games. Every night you have to show up, you have to be your best. to have a chance to win games. And then when you have a stretch like that, you can take it two ways. It's like, yeah, it's the hardest stretch we have, or is it the biggest opportunity that we have on our schedule? And that's how you got to approach it, knowing that it ain't going to be easy. But I think that's what I like about our conference, is that you have to show up. You have opportunities to play ranked teams, whereas when you look at our non-conference schedule, you might be able to get one not non-conference team that is ranked, maybe two, but within the conference you have all these teams that if you're having a good year, and you get a chance to beat some of those teams, now you can put yourself a little bit in the conversation as well. So it comes with the territory of, like, being tough and being hard, but at the same time it's a great opportunity.
Well, I don't want to throw boiling water on you already, but I know you start out the year with Wesleyan Classic. I guess you get familiar with Greensboro, as you'll play them twice again in the Bridgewater Classic. But me and Gregory was sitting here looking at your schedule from last year, and we're trying to compare it to this year. It almost seems like this year is, I would call, a balanced schedule, because it looks like you play Hampton-Sydney twice, Randolph twice, Shenandoah twice, and Guilford twice, whereas I think you only played them one time last year. So we was trying to figure out the schedule.
Yeah, it changes. It's a balanced schedule. So every year it kind of it switches who you play. But you're going to have some teams you play twice, and then everybody you play once. But yeah, our non-conference schedule, I'll try to make it, get some road games, get some home games, get some neutral games, a little bit of everything. Given kind of the guys that I knew we had coming back, I think it's a nice feel for them to get on the road, play in some places we haven't been to. We've never been to North Carolina Wesleyan, at least since I've been here. So it's a new place, new team that we haven't played. I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember playing Greensboro either since I've been here. So again, that's another new team we were playing. I think we got Southern Virginia twice as well. So it's a good schedule, but again, we got to take it one game at a time. And right now, the first 2 weekends were at two classics, so you got back-to-back games both weekends. So we got to take those, each weekend at a time, and then move forward from there.
Before I turn it back over to Gregory, I kind of looked at some of the statistics from 23, 24, and I think 3 or 4 of them kind of stood out to me. I know the points per game average was 77 to 63. Field goal percentage was about 47 to your EMU's 38, and then rebounds was 41.9 to 31. So it appears to me, by looking at your roster, that you can go 6'8", 6'6", 6'6" across the back line easy. So, I mean, I know that today's game has changed as far as getting up and down the court. I'm still stuck in the old Carolina, 1 through 5 game, 4 and 5 still playing on the box and stuff. But no, I understand the game has changed. But is there a way, or is there something you're looking for to increase your field goal percentage and also your rebounding average?
Yeah, I think going into last year, we were too much of a 3-point shooting team, and we didn't shoot it great. Obviously, by looking at the stats from 3, and I think that's been the conversation consistently this preseason and early in this season, is how can we be more of a 40% twos, and then 60% of our shots are threes. Backwards. 60% of our shots are twos, 40% of our shots are threes. And that's the conversation. Is a lot of it is just shot selection, right? You have guys that can make threes, and given the way we're playing and we space the floor, there's going to be opportunity for those. But is it a quality 3, or is it an opportunity for us to attack a closeout and try to get an easier 2 or get to the free throw line? And I think is the balance of that. And it's just us having those conversations consistently with our guys. And we have been. I think the rebounding piece that's the one, for sure that has to change. And that's been, probably focus number 1 for us this year going into the season, is how can we not get out rebounded by that margin consistently? Boxing out is a big part of it. Toughness is another part of it. Pursuing the basketball is the other part of it. Like it's all those things combined. But having the mindset that we're going to attack that every day in practice, that's where we begin with it. And we've done a good job with it so far. We're still, that's priority number 1. Get to the glass, keep people off the glass. that allows us to play the way we want to play. We want to get out, we want to run. But if you can't rebound, that makes it tough. But I think that so far we're doing a good job with it.
One more thing, I was just looking at your roster, and I kind of made mention of it. I think you've got 17 kids on the roster. Nice
Mm-hmm.
mix of what you call first year, I call freshmen still. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and sophomore, I mean seniors and grad students. I think it's 4-5, 4-4. So, but you returned 60% of your kids from last year, so that's got to be a dream for you. I know you lost some scoring, but
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be a dream for you to work with all these kids again this year.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, we did lose some key players, and Day Jordan last year, and Julian Hagerman, and Marcus Pradales were three guys that brought things to the team. But we had most of the rest of the rotation, our guys that were freshmen last year. They got a chance to play. Now they're sophomores, so you expect to see a little bit of that jump, right? Sophomore year, we've added a couple transfers as well, and then a couple incoming freshmen that we're hoping they can help. So our rotation, I think, in talent, it's a little bit better going into this year, but we do have a lot of new faces. Half of our roster is returners. So out of those 17, we have 9 of them are new faces. 8 are returners. So it's mixing new faces, new talent, new abilities, all those things together, and figure out what's the best rotation and lineups for us.
Yeah, I just want to hit more on that. Like you mentioned, you lose Brown, Andrus, and Hagerman. I think they started like 21, 19, and 16 games. But I was kind of seeing this freshman, Isaiah Carr, and Kai
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yep.
And I think is it Edison Blanco? Is that how you say it?
Yep. And
So
yep.
so they started. You started a few games. Isaiah Carr started 13 last year, but played in 22. And so there's definitely a lot of experience on your bench from last year that's returning. Um, what did you see in those sophomore or the freshmen last year, Isaiah Carr and
Yeah.
Kai Johnson getting them to play early?
Yeah, all 3 of them were very efficient when it came to what they were doing. So all 3 of them on the defensive end, very aggressive, very consistent for the most part. Which, for me, that's if you're a freshman and you can start doing that early, uh, that allows you to get on the floor, and then kind of what you do from there is what keeps you out there. But then all 3 of them are good shooters for us, especially Eddie and Kai are really, really good shooters for the most part. Kai didn't have a great year shooting, but he is a good shooter. It's just one of those years. Eddie, for us, is probably one of our best shooters. And then Isaiah is a guy that can do a little bit of everything, where he can shoot threes, he can drive, he can pass, he defends multiple positions. So all 3 of those guys are guys that going into their sophomore year, again, you expect a little bit of that sophomore jump. What improvements do they bring now? I said, they're going to have the same year, they're going to be a little bit better. And then you still have guys like Aviwe, who's a senior for us, who's been in the rotation and the starter for 3 years, 4 years, who's now running, going into a leadership role as a senior and trying to finish out his career the right way. I'm trying to think. Aaron Brooks is another guy from last year who early in the season was playing. We expect him to have another sophomore jump this year, and some of our juniors from last year that are juniors this year. We got Zach Bailey's another guy that left his first 2 years just injury prone, and we're hoping this year he can stay healthy and finally have a full season to play and show what he's got. Jalen Jones is another guy we expect him to step up and be a bigger presence in the paint for us. And a freshman like Tico, who's one of our bigs, he's come in and developed, and he's growing very quickly, but he still has a ton of room for improvement. And those 3 guys are bigs that we expect, big minutes from all of them, really.
Yeah, kind of hitting on. I think you said Aviwe, is that how you say it? Long.
Mm-hmm.
So he's your senior. It's been kind of like your workhorse for the past few years. He started, I think, 21 games as a freshman, so pretty good there.
Mm-hmm.
Had 9 points per game last year, or in 2022, 14 points a game, 12 points a game last year. Do you see him having like making all ODAC is the type of year he'll have this year as well?
Yeah, I think that's should be his goal, right? I mean, it's one of my goals for him. But I think that that's a tough thing to do in our conference. So it takes a lot of that, consistency every day. And he's doing all these things, consistency, effort. Um, but I think that's definitely should be his goal, is try to pursue that. Uh, and us, as the rest of the team, we gotta continue to develop and get better around him, so that he can have an opportunity to get that if possible. I think if we end up having a solid year, he should be in the conversation, no doubt about it.
I think he definitely do it. Kind of off season as well. You had some changes in your coaching staff. You bring in Julian Stover as I think as a full-time assistant. What kind of went into that process, and what do you see in Coach Stover?
Yeah, I've been through this process a couple of times already. So, but I think Coach Stover brings up, some youth, some energy. He's from the Maryland area, so he can help us get out there and recruit a little bit more. He's great with player development with our guys. He brings a lot of knowledge on the defensive end that we were looking for, and passion on that end as well. But I'm very excited for him joining our staff. He's so far doing a tremendous job, and we're not even playing games yet. So I'm very excited to see where things go. But he's been a great addition to the staff, no doubt about it.
I'm gonna go one more time, Greg, Big Greg. Kind of going back to your freshman class that came in. I just want to ask a couple questions about what you saw in them. You have James Steele, I think it's Tico Bostic Jr. From Northern Virginia, and Zach Perry. What did you see in them, or how they get to campus?
Yeah, I'm trying to think freshman. So James should be,
Or is he a sophomore?
Sophomore, I
Okay,
think. Yeah, he's still first year, but he should be a sophomore. It
gotcha.
should be Tico. It should be um Zach, and then Devarion is
Okay,
our other freshman.
gotcha.
So those three guys. I think at this point, Tico's in a position coming in as a freshman where he's as a big, he's got an opportunity to help contribute right away if everything falls in line, right? A lot of things go into that classroom, consistency, all kinds of things. But I think if he does that, which he has been to this point, I expect him to contribute. Get in there, get in the glass, be a good screen setter. Take his opportunities on the offensive end when they're there, and play aggressive when he gets an opportunity. The Zach Perry right now is one he's working really, really hard for us. He's learning, as he goes, and has a great attitude every day and works very, very hard. Devarion, at this point, he had a little bit of an injury, got a concussion, so he'll be out, for a little bit. So he'll have to do some catch up when he comes back. But for the most part, he's a great shooter, runs the floor really well, gets to the corners, and he can make open shots if you leave him open.
Coach, I've been on that campus many a day, going back to Gregory's day.
Mm-hmm.
That campus is one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever been on any level. You've got some of the best facilities, not only in D3, but anywhere you ever go in the country. So let's just say I've got a kid, maybe he's my son, that's averaging 25 points a game and 10 rebounds a ball game, and he's looking for a place to come to school. So how can you sell him on Eastern Mennonite, or how would you sell him on
Sure.
Eastern Mennonite?
Well, if he's at 25 and 10, JMU should be calling. Um, but but I would say, I mean, for the most part, I think you cover a lot of those. I think our campus is a big part of it. I think our facilities is, up there in our conference as well. But I think ultimately, I think the community that this campus has is probably the biggest asset. I think it's a small campus, but it's very tight knit, in my opinion. The professors really want to help out, not just student athletes, but all students really. It allows me to kind of keep tabs on them a little bit better as well. So they have the support they need all the time, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's with us, whether it's, they get sick, whatever it may be. All those things, we cover those bases really well here. I think a lot of it is, the area as well, right? You're in Harrisonburg. You've got JMU across the street, Bridgewater. So we have three schools as a college town. And then ultimately, I like to sell them on what we're trying to do as well, right? Where we're trying to go, where we've been, where we are, and where we're trying to go, and what it's going to take to do that, and what kind of talent it's going to take to do that as well. But I think you hit it. You got it. I think the campus and our facilities are definitely top notch. And as the campus keeps kind of it's growing right now, and we keep improving, I think it's only going to continue to get better. Just build a new track. We got a strength coach, 2 years ago, which we didn't have for a long time. So we're slowly getting some of those things added that are going to continue to improve what we're trying to do.
Do you feel overshadowed by JMU at all?
It's a different. I don't. I mean, they're in their own world.
Yeah.
They're going to do what they do, and it's great for the community. Brings a lot of people to town. We just got to find our own niche with what we're trying to do, and get some of those some of the spotlight back. But for the most part, I think JMU is great for the community.
Well, I can vouch for Yoder Arena being a good place to watch a basketball game to enjoy as a fan, and also as my time as an assistant manager and everything like that. So had a good time there.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of our final question, we talked about this earlier, kind of the blue sky, the perfect situation. If EMU is to be successful this year, what do they have to do?
Yeah, I think that the biggest two things we're going to have to do is defensively be a much better team than we were last year. And rebounding wise, we're going to have to be much better than we were last year. In a perfect world, I think if we do those two things, we're, right now, being realistic, we could probably be in that middle of the pack, maybe above in the conference. And when you're in there, you're in that top six, you're in the conversation, right? I mean, you look at the conference last year, we have 4 teams in the NCAA tournament. So if you're in the top six, you're some of the best teams in the country. So that's where we're trying to get at right now, and we got to take it one day at a time, one practice at a time, one game at a time, and just continue to stack days together and get better, and then see where we are when the end of the season comes. But I think that's the goal: is continue to improve defensively, continue to improve our rebounding, be a very on offense. I would like our team to be not just a one guy, two guy. I want us to be multiple guys that can create issues, multiple guys that are weapons, which we have those guys. It's just figuring it out as we go with all the new faces. But I think that's where we are, and I think we have a chance. We just got to keep focusing on one day at a time and continue to grow daily.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Coach. And I think you're in for an exciting upcoming 24, 25. I really do. I just we're not very shy about things either, so we'll definitely be in the arena watching you guys this upcoming year. And by the way, my kid will be talking to you. He wants an on-campus visit right now.
Let's go. Hey, let's do it. Bring him down.
Well, we do appreciate it, Coach. Like I said, good luck to you guys November 9th there at North Carolina Wesleyan. So we do wish you luck. Beat the Eagles and beat the Cougars this year. So Coach Melvin Felix from Eastern Mennonite University. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Welcome back to the District 2 Sports Program. We continue our series for the men's basketball ODAC season preview. We're joined by head coach of the Ferrum Panthers, Coach Patrick Corrigan, in his 3rd season. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Coach. And we talked about the ODAC a lot, so we're doing a ODAC season preview. But before we get into your coaching career, I did want to address that you are a Hampton-Sydney alum and played in the ODAC before. So what was that experience like going to the NCAA tournament back in 2013?
Oh, it was terrific. Played 4 years there. We had a great group. We played in the first round of the tournament, lost at the buzzer, but we had some incredible crowds that year. We went 23-5 and went 16-2 in the ODAC. As talented as a group as I've seen in the ODAC that I had to play with, and it was a lot of fun. Wish we could have made it a little farther, but overall, I mean, it was really high level basketball, just like it is now. So it was a terrific experience.
before I turn over to them, I asked Coach Palumbo this from Guilford. He also played basketball in the ODAC before he became a coach. What is it about the ODAC that kind of brings you back to it to be an assistant coach and to be a head coach in the league?
Yeah, I think it's just the quality of basketball, and how much, each school cares about basketball, and how much, the coaches stay. So I mean, I think a lot of the coaches probably could have moved on at different times, but they love the schools that they're at, and the quality of basketball and the competitiveness keeps them there. And so, I think that's the biggest thing, is just the respect for one another, like competing wise. And yeah, I mean, most of these schools I think are, they can compete against, quality Division II opponents, and, maybe even higher. And so you see that sometimes with the exhibition games and scrimmages and that sort of thing. And so it's as good as basketball as you're going to find in Virginia, in the area. So I think that's the biggest thing, is we're all competitors and we all have a lot of respect for each other, and it makes for some really good basketball.
Coach, I wanted to ask you, I know that I told you a few minutes ago that sometimes the funny guy doesn't have all the good questions or whatever, but maybe I've come up with one here. I guess what I was going to ask you was, you being at Ferrum now, which is on the D3 level, and listen, these guys that I'm with today, I guess I need to tell you first and foremost, we've all decided that the ODAC is the SEC of Division III in all sports now. So that's just not football, but I mean, you can look at the schedule and see the rankings and stuff. But what I was going to ask you was, you've been on the staff at UNC Charlotte, D1. You've been on the staff at assistant coach at Cal Poly, and
Yep.
now the head coach at a D3 school in Ferrum. What do you see as the difference on these levels as far as basketball is concerned?
I think, the funny thing is that at the end of the day, like it's all kind of the same. Like when you walk on the court for practice, you walk on the court for a game, if you strip everything else away, just five guys on each team in between the lines, is you're coaching basketball and you're playing basketball, and it's competition. It's a lot more the same than it is different. So from that perspective, when you're on the court, you're in between the lines, it's very much the same. But, the biggest thing is probably just a tad bit more athletic, a tad bit, more skilled. It's just a tad bit, bigger physically as you go up each level. And so, and then for the guys that, maybe you go up to the Division I level, and maybe there's a guy that isn't as athletic as the rest of them. That just means he's that much more skilled, or he's that much, he has a specific skill set that is that much higher. If he's an elite shooter, or, something of that sort. So it's not that big a difference, but there's a small difference as you go up each level in terms of like ability for players.
Let me follow up on that question just a second. Are you in a position, I'm not sure how much or how in detailed you can go with this, but all right, so you're D3, but you've got to prepare for a D2 schedule in what, a year or so, maybe?
Yep.
Is that a different way? Do you have to go about your recruiting in a different way now, as far as, because you're going to have kids that should or will probably be there 2, 3, 4 years. So do you have to promote that or project that D2 status now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite an undertaking in the offseason, reevaluating our current roster that we have, and then moving forward to seeing what we need to be able to compete in Conference Carolinas. But yeah, it's definitely something on our mind. But I think just the nature of college basketball, a lot of teams are year to year anyways. And so, I think right now we're focused on finishing this year strong and having a great year, and then kind of reevaluating in terms of, where we need to go with our roster moving forward. But we're definitely recruiting and, understanding who's out there and what the landscape is, and, staying in touch with coaches and that sort of thing. But I think at first, just like every other school, you have to reevaluate your own roster, and then you kind of go from there.
Devin, I'll ask one more thing before you jump in, because I think you've been very humble, Mr. Corrigan, and because I know in 2023 you went to the Jay Billis Coaches Leadership Program, so not just everybody gets asked to come to that. So just a little bit of maybe you can follow up with that. I know that, the philosophy is to bring in coaches or bring in coaches that are set up to be a D1 coach or something to that effect. But how did that symposium play in your life?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I reached out a few times, and they had somebody drop at the last second, and I snuck in there. So I was very fortunate to be in there, but it was incredible. They brought in some of the best head coaches in the country. They brought in athletic directors, different people in college athletics that are extremely qualified, people you see on TV and all that sort of stuff. And they were really vulnerable and open and really told us kind of their path, their stories, and what makes them a successful coach. And we were able to ask questions and, just understand at a deeper level, what makes a great coach and how everybody's different. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it. And you have to kind of find your way, find your philosophy, and just sharing as many of those with other coaches, even the coaches that were going through the program as well, building those relationships and hearing their stories just helps you kind of understand who you are as a coach and who you are, as a person and how you can be better. So it was extremely valuable and, a great experience.
Yeah, so Coach, I just want to ask you, just to preface my question. You had to be the youngest coach in the ODAC, right?
I don't know if I am. I know Nick at Shenandoah. I think he might be a year or two younger than me. But yeah, we're the two youngest for sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I wanted to say, last year at Ferrum was y'all's second highest rating or ranking in the Massey rating since 2003. The best record in win total since I guess the past 13 years. I was going to ask, like Gregory said earlier, as far as your history at UNC Charlotte, what you were able to accomplish last year at Ferrum, how have you been able to accomplish so much at such a young age?
I appreciate you pointing that out for us. But yeah, no, it was a great year. We improved a lot from year one to year two. And we still, it was a great year for us, great step. We still felt like we left some games out there, lost a lot of close games, which was a little disappointing. But I've been fortunate to work for some great coaches and have some great mentors. And I've been in a lot of different experiences, I think has helped me. Being at UNC Charlotte, we had, 4 head coaches in 5 years. So that was an experience in terms of seeing a lot of different ways to do things and, just having to adapt and learn new systems and, deal with, ups and downs. We had a lot of highs and some lows there. So just learning how to like stay the course, I think was the biggest thing. And then, seeing just, Cal Poly Pomona went to the NCAA tournament, that was a great experience in terms of, that staff has won a national championship at D2 level. So those guys are still mentors to me and, being able to learn from them and see what a really successful, small college program looks like. So just all the different experiences have kind of just, helped me. I think the biggest thing is just learn how to stay the course, staying to like setting the expectation and, your vision and then staying the course and, obviously having to adapt, here and there, but just figuring out what works for your school. And, every school is different. Every program's different. And, we've been very specific to Ferrum College and how we recruit and how we coach. And, it's been good for us so far. So hopefully we can take that next step next year or this year.
Coach, I want to talk about last season. Well, this is your third season, I know that, but your first year you go 10-17 and make a big improvement. Your second year you go 16-11. You started off really hot, 13-2. I was kind of looking at the schedule. You had a big win over Virginia Wesleyan, played number 1 Hampton City, very tough. And then I looked at the rest of the schedule, and you see it, and you're like, oh, there's a lot of losses. But you lost 5 games by average of 3 points. So those games just go a little bit different. I mean, you're over the 20-win mark. So I just want to get kind of your thoughts on last year.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much sums it up. I mean, we had a chance to beat. We were right in the game with all the top teams in our conference, which are, three, Hampton, Sydney, Guilford, Macon. We were all right there at the end of those games in the last 5 minutes, one possession games. And so that was, and then even games, Shenandoah, W&L, Bridgewater twice, all those games were one possession games. So, I think it was, I'm not sure exactly what it was. We were 2-7 in close games in conference or something of that sort. So, I have to take responsibility for that as a coach, and our guys have to take responsibility for that. So the biggest thing for us moving forward is just like having a winner's mentality in those moments, and hopefully learning through those late game situations and being able to execute this year in those moments. But as a whole, from last year, we made a huge improvement. We were more talented than we were the year before. We had more depth. And guys, we were able to defend a lot better, which allowed us to stay in games even when we weren't scoring. We had an all-conference player that kind of carried us in scoring, especially in some of those big wins. And so it was a good mixture of returners and transfers that helped us kind of make a huge improvement. And so we have a similar mix this year of returners and transfers coming in. So, I think it's we have a chance to be right there in the conversation again. I guess, at the end of the year, most teams look at those 1 or 2 possession games, and depending on what your record in those games depends on how you feel about the season. So, we're aware of that and, working on it.
Coach, I'm the stat nerd of the bunch. So I'm sitting here looking at some things, and I know you were 16-11, 6-10 in the conference. I'm just trying to figure out, where do you improve, or what is your improvement level? Because I'm sitting here looking at points per game. You're outscoring the opponent 75.9 to 65.7 for a 10.1 margin. You're shooting 46% from the field. They're only shooting 39% from the field. 3-pointers, 34%. They're only shooting 30.
Yeah.
You're out rebounding them by 4 a game. The only thing I see that you're not doing better than the opposition is shooting free throws. You're at 68 and they're at 73. So where does this team go this year? What is the improvement level?
Yeah, so those stats are probably from our total stats. So conference stats are a little bit different, a little bit more level. But we were still top 6 in all the main categories. The 2 categories we were low in were 3-pointers made and free throw percentage, like you pointed out. But again, I think the biggest thing is, when you look at it, is the end of the game, is those close games, because even with the conference stats, or considering that, we were right there. It's 1 or 2 plays in all those games. So I think it's really just executing in those moments. And I think other teams have had a lot of returners, 4th, 5th-year guys that have been in those situations, had made plays, had won previously in previous years in those moments. And I think that's where the advantage was. So, I'm hopeful we can get over the hump. But I mean, our stats, I think, led us to a chance to be in those moments. And then it's like, what do you do with those moments? I think that's the biggest thing. But I think our stats were good enough to give us those opportunities. So I really think it's just making those 1 or 2 plays and and finishing those games. But yeah, 3-pointers made, we're working on that, obviously, and then free throws, we have some control over that. So those 2 were the ones that jumped out at us. But I think we can rebound it better, and I think we defended, I think it was a 42% opponents last year in conference, which was 6th. I think we can still do better than that. So we'll see.
I'm gonna ask one more question about the schedule. I know you got to look forward to this year with everybody being ranked in your conference. Basically, I think Gregory came out with the ODAC preseason rankings today. I hadn't seen them as of yet, but Guilford, Hampton, Sydney, and I'm missing somebody.
Macon,
I guess all in the top 25. But I was just curious about a game in November on the upcoming schedule where you traveled to George Mason. So how does that come about? I mean, I guess in the past I've been used to maybe the D1, D3 schools were all exhibition games. So I'm guessing now that this actually counts as a regularly scheduled game.
It does for them. It doesn't for us. So a lot more, a lot more of those mid-major teams are now allowing to count those games. It used to be exhibitions, but now that most of those get at least one to three non-one games, so it opens the door for a lot more of these games. And so it's a benefit for both. They they get a home game, and we get a little bit of pocket change and a good experience. So, but yeah, most of it's just through connections, through guys who you worked with and are at different places, and then the schedule is just a line up. And yeah, but we definitely look to do it once a year. We played ECU last year. That was a great experience. We played them close for 3/4 of the game before they pulled away. So, it's a great experience. It's fun for our guys, and it's fun for our staff as well. So, but yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah,
All right.
Coach.
Oh, go ahead, Devin.
I just want to ask about the roster for the upcoming year. And this is going off the projected Ferrum roster from the website, so I'm not sure if it's been fully updated or not, but looks like from last season you lose Ja'Cory Johnson, Calvin Washington, Odin, three of your top five leading scorers from last year, but
Yep.
returning Bryant Wall, Alfredo, Abel Rivera, two productive guys from last season's team, especially Wall. Talk about what it means to get those two guys back, and then any newcomers to the team who might be able to make an impact.
Yeah, losing those three guys is definitely a huge impact. They really helped us, win. They were a big part of reason for winning the games that we won. Especially just big minutes, guys that you could trust on both sides of the ball and know what they were doing. So definitely, going to be part of an adjustment. But yeah, Fredo, Bryant Wall, Charles Tart will be back, Xavier will be back, and Sterling Charles. All five of those guys will be back that played, good minutes for us. And Brian's been looking good. He was he had some big moments last year. He had 8 blocks in a game. He scored over 20 a couple times, had some double doubles. So, he's been really good so far in the preseason. Fredo as well. He's really improved. All those guys have improved. All those guys came in great shape, and with a chip on their shoulder, and wanting to have a great last year for some of them. So we're excited, and it's been a good mix to have that. And they're kind of helping maybe the incoming transfers understand that this isn't just a regular Division III league. Like it's not. You're playing at some really good players. You're playing at some really good coaches. Like this isn't, a walk in the park. And so they understand that. And, it's been good for them to help, with the urgency, with the competitiveness in practice, with the helping share what I expect and, what I want the guys to do, helping them, the newcomers on the court, kind of pick up the learning curve with that. So it's been an enjoyable preseason month of practice. And I think they're ready to play somebody for real now. So we'll see.
Coach,
this is the unprofessional part of me coming out, possibly, but I just want to let you know, we're only an hour away from you, and there is a person up there that you are cohorts with, and Eric Owens. So he holds a special place in our hearts, and he was also on the show earlier this year. So
cool.
Love Eric to death. So if we can help you whatsoever, if you need somebody to take a look at somebody down the Danville Ringgold Way, or we'll go to Lynchburg, Roanoke, you just name it. We'll help you out any way we can.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. And, Eric's been awesome. He's really brought some energy to campus, and seems like they really, in the short amount of time that he had when he got hired, brought in some really good recruits. So I think everybody's very excited.
He's a superb guy. He sure is.
Yes, sir.
Coach, going back to your background, I think before Cal Poly, you were part of West Coast Elite, kind of like the AAU organization. Your experience there, has that helped you as far as like the off-season recruiting, kind of knowing where to go to look for recruits and stuff like that, and how to talk to kids?
Yeah, that was a time where I was on the other side of things for sure. And so those guys were great. And when I moved over there, not having a huge network over there, I at West Coast Elite and Windward High School for a year before I got to Cal Poly, Pomona. And, just, I mean, they really just helped me get connected in the area. Had to work really hard for them, do a lot of different things. And just learning just that constant skill set of networking and, understanding connections and understanding how to, it definitely helped me understand how to go into a new city and, learn the landscape. And so it definitely helped that skill and just understanding, what players are looking for, what coaches are looking for, what parents are looking for, just continuing to learn as much about that as I can. But yeah, those guys were great to me and, helped me, end up at Cal Poly Pomona. So it's definitely a good year.
And kind of my last question, I wanted to go over this year's schedule. So we talked about that game November 23rd against George Mason, but kind of like your the meat of the schedule, you do have ODAC play starting December 4th, but I was looking at December 11th on, you kind of gets the meat of the schedule gets a little tough there. So you got Virginia Wesleyan playing the CNU shootout. CNU won in 2023, I believe, the national championship. So definitely a good bunch there. And then I was looking at January, and you got Guilford, 2 road games, Randolph-Macon, Roanoke, Sydney, and just murderer's row there. So how do you attack these games? Is it just one game at a time, and how do you kind of look at those?
Yeah, if you want to ruin your day, just look at your next schedule. And that's my assistant's like, why do you keep looking at that? It's like every time I do, I just am like, good Lord, it's it's one game at a time. It really is. You start really going game by game, and you're like, there's no breath, you can't, there's no like off game. It's always like anybody can beat anybody on a given night, 1 through 13. So there's no like chalk up a win. That doesn't exist. So it's definitely, it can ruin your day real quick. But so it's one game at a time. We really wanted to challenge ourselves a little bit, and in the preseason, or I guess non-conference with the CNU tournament. And we play North Carolina Wesleyan and Mary Baldwin, who are typically top of the USA South. So we wanted to challenge ourselves with those 4 games, and we play Methodist as well. So we wanted to see kind of get a little bit more of a test this year, I guess, in the non-conference, and kind of see maybe play a couple ODAC level teams before we get into the ODAC schedule.
I think you've got this program going in the right direction, Coach, and I just my hat's off to you, especially with the young guys such as yourself. I think those kids have a lot to look up to, so my hat's off to you.
I appreciate that.
Devin, any other coaches or any other question for Coach here?
I got one more for you, Coach, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
I'm Big Greg was saying he's like the stats guy here, but I'm more the recruiting guy myself. So I just I want to get your take on, what it takes to recruit at obviously a Division I level like UNC Charlotte versus what it takes to recruit at the D3 level. I mean, obviously there's quite a few differences there, but what it takes or what is involved in the recruiting process at this level.
Yeah, things are they are so different at every level. And things are constantly changing, as we all know, with NIL and revenue share now. So at the Division I level, there's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot more people involved with different players, I would say. So you may have 5 to 10 guys involved with a player at the higher levels, where you're recruiting all those people. And then, the lower you get, it's more about the kids and their families. And so I think that's the biggest difference that I see. But again, with the NIL and the revenue share, I think at the higher levels, it's become more about money, and it's trending in that direction. But at our level, it's more the kids and their families, and usually AAU coach or high school coach that has helped the kid throughout his career. So it's a lot smaller circle, and it's a lot more if it's a good fit, both personally and school wise. And does it align with, what they're looking for in a school, what they're looking for on the court, and, what they're looking for in a program. And just, we're pretty open here. We talk about who we are. We don't hide from who we are, where we're located, what we're about, and we lay it all out there. And, then we just kind of see if it's something that's a mutual fit. Because if it's not a mutual fit, then it's not going to work in the long run. So, we're pretty open with that. And, it's been good for us.
All right.
And
Any other
I,
questions? Okay.
I want to
Yeah.
ask one more, I want to ask one more. I'm sorry. So, as far as your coaching philosophy there at Ferrum, what exactly is going into your offensive strategy? Are y'all more of an up-tempo team? Are you trying to run more offensive sets in the half court, or just curious on your take there?
Yeah, I think we've changed every year a little bit just based on personnel. So, I try to coach the personnel the best I can. The first year we had a tremendous point guard in Sean Hicks. And so he had a high usage rate. And then we had a Calvin Washington was all conference that year. So he with those, we kind of played through those two guys. Last year, Jakari was extremely efficient. And then Tali, I think, was second in assists in the conference. So a lot of that stuff was through Tali was a great decision maker, and then Jakari could really score it. And then we kind of played through those two things. And then Bryant towards the end really came along offensively. So, we tried to play through our personnel as much as possible. This year we have a little bit more depth, I think. So we are going to try to push the pace a little bit and just see how that looks. But we're going to have to adjust. I think everybody starts the season with an idea of what they want to do. And then, especially second half of the year, you get into those tough conference games, and, you can only push the pace so much as the season goes on. So I think we have to still be good in the half court. We can't just be running up and down. So we're trying to work on both, but I definitely think we have the depth and we have some guys that can make some plays in open court. So we're going to try to play that way and adjust from there. But I think we have a lot of different guys, a lot of different skill sets. So I think we'll be able to have some different ways to attack in the half court. But right now, I'm trying to play fast, and I'm trying to give the guys a lot of freedom, and just, but with that, again, at some point you have to kind of narrow it down. And so there's a balance between the sets and directing shots and then letting them play. So just like everybody else, we're trying to find that balance, and it's a process. So hopefully we figure it out here.
Coach, I'm a 89 Averett grad. Take it easy on Doino this year, okay?
I don't know, man. They're always tough. They're always tough.
Well, Coach, our last question we always end with, as far as the ODAC goes, it's kind of open-ended question. If Ferrum is to be successful this year, they have to do what?
I think we have to. Good question. I think we have to play for each other, play together, play for each other, and then play to win. And I know that sounds obvious, but playing for each other, playing to win, and then making plays in those big moments that I talked about earlier is executing in the last 4 minutes of the game. Those are the kind of three things: play together, play to win, and execute down the stretch.
Well, Coach, we do appreciate it. Like Big Greg and Devin has said, we think you're the right guy at this time. You got to get to the program moving in the right direction. So we do appreciate your time, and good luck to you guys this season.
No, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it. Very, very thoughtful questions. So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
This is a District 2 Sports Podcast. We're continuing our series on the men's basketball for the ODAC season preview. We're joined by Averett University head coach, David Doino. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Appreciate you guys having me on the show.
No problem, Coach. This is your 10th or 11th season there at Averett?
11 seasons, 10 years. Yep. So
Nice.
I came in September of my first season when school already started. So my seasons are a year ahead of the years I've been here. So
Gotcha. Well, Yeah.
You look at a picture of him right now. See, he didn't have those gray hairs in his beard when he first started. So
I was a lot heavier too. Stressed me and lost a lot of weight.
hey, but you can see
So-
mine too, Coach. It's all wisdom.
Absolutely. That's what I tell the players, at least. I'm not sure if they believe it.
Well, Coach, I'm not sure if you have those gray hairs for. I mean, you're the all-time winningest coach in Averett history. You've been to the NCAA tournament. You've won the USA South 4 times. So it sounds like you had some success down there in Danville.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have some really good players and some really good coaches helping me out, and been able to win some games. But the way I am, it's never about what we've done. We're always trying to move forward and get better every day. So that's where these gray hairs come into play, because we're always stressed about the next thing. So want to make sure that our guys are always kind of looking forward and just trusting the process and doing their best they can on and off the floor every day, to reach whatever goals each one of them have.
And I don't want to leave out I think you're USA South Coach of the Year 3 times as well. So just a lot of great accomplishments there.
What I was going to ask, Gregory, I'm sorry, Coach, I mean to cut you off, but look, you're being very modest right now. You know that, don't you? I mean, listen, my question here is, you are a 3-year starter at Virginia Wesleyan, right?
As a 4-year starter, technically. Just if you don't want to get right, all right?
Okay.
I'm joking.
3-time All ODAC, 1,000-point club, and 70 and 36 as a player. So you can relate to the players on today's level, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And the other part I was going to ask you was, does every coach in the ODAC, did they play somewhere else and come back and coach? Do y'all ever talk about, like, hey, can I have your team next year? Can I come to Wesleyan? Everybody played somewhere else, and they're coaching somewhere else in the ODAC.
Well, I think it has to do with the pride that the players have when they're in the ODAC and just the tradition of the ODAC, and just great. That's such a great league. To be able to come back and coach in this league. Obviously, we just joined it, but for players to come back and they see how special the ODAC tournament is when they were a player, it just has so many things that excites you to be a part of it. And that if you're competing at the top of it or can compete at the top of it, that you're amongst the best in the nation. So I think there's just a lot of pride when you're at school at these places, and to be able to come back and competing it is is something that I think hopefully just continues. I think it just adds to the tradition of the league. But it is interesting, like I played against a bunch of coaches, and then I coached against a bunch of guys when I was a coach. So to see those relationships build over time, it also makes it kind of special, because we're all kind of connected for not just competing against each other, but for years and years beyond even just coaches, just as players and coaches. So it is special.
Well, look, me and Devin and Gregory, we always discuss the ODAC, and we had a preview of the football season, and it was determined that the ODAC was the SEC of D3 in football, but we extended that as the SEC of basketball, football, and baseball. So my question is, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about the USA South Conference whatsoever, so I don't want it to come out that way, but can you tell a difference just by not looking at your schedule? But is there a difference in the brand of basketball between the USA South and the ODAC?
I would say there is a difference in the brand. I think it's just different styles. And, I think the schools in the ODAC just traditionally over time have just been, schools like W&L and Hampton-Sydney and Randolph-Macon. When you got schools like that traditionally that have been doing it for, well, good Lord knows how long, before I was even probably born, those are things that I think it's hard for other leagues to compete with as far as just that tradition standpoint. But yeah, every night I was talking to Drew, our SID, like it doesn't matter if you're first or you're picked last. Like if you're not ready to go that night in our league, you're going to have a tough time winning games. And it speaks to the talent in our league. It speaks to the coaches and their work ethic and how they prepare. But it is just brutal. And I would venture to say that there's teams that finish from 5 to the bottom of our league that can compete in a lot of leagues out there for championships. So it makes it exciting, but it also makes you have to be prepared every night to play a certain way and be consistent, or you won't have a chance to be have success in this league.
So, Coach, I wanted to ask a question. So, as far as the three of us, we grew up in Danville. Only my dad went to, or only our dad went to Averett in particular. But we grew up going to Averett football games, going to Averett basketball games. Me and Gregory had the opportunity to both play in the holiday shootout that they had at Averett every year when we were growing up. It's so, that university is so woven into the culture of Danville, Virginia. Just speak about what it means to not only coach at Averett, but you're also coaching, for the city of Danville.
Yeah, well, the coach at Averett, like I said, when I got the job here, I fell in love with this place on my interview. I mean, it's about the people, just it's family. I felt welcomed, and like I was here for years. When I came here on my interview from Dr. Franks, our president, she is our biggest fan. Her and her husband are sitting in half court at any game, and they're in the at baseball and softball, supporting all the teams here. So. And then, when I got here, Meg Stephen was our AD, and now Danny Miller has taken over, and he's been here for forever. So, it's just that family atmosphere and the way that the community has embraced us in my time here with the new football stadium. And we've had success on the basketball court and volleyball. Like they've followed all the teams here, and and just our main campus is right in the neighborhood, right there on Main Street. So you feel connected with the community as well, and it's a special place to be. And it's been fun to watch our community over the last 10 years really grow in the support. They were supportive when I first got here, but it's just grown every year. And if you come back and see homecoming, or you're at any events that we have on campus, I think it's really easy to recognize how special and the support is here in Danville.
Well, Coach, I wanted to butt in. Going back to your USA South days, I kind of had a similar question to Danny Miller when he was the head coach there for volleyball. Had a lot of great seasons. Would be first place in the conference a lot. Kind of seeing how you were. I think you won first place like 4 times, or tied or something like that for the East and for the whole conference. But you had that one NCAA tournament appearance, and I think recently the D3 tournament has expanded, but I don't think it was expanded back then for at-large bids. How frustrating was it for you to, be first place in the regular season, have to compete in a tournament that's one game take all? How frustrating is it to lose in the semifinals or the finals of the conference tournament and not make that NCAA tournament when you had such great seasons?
I know it's more frustrating for the player, like my perspective for the players going into it. I knew what we had to do. I think just being a part of the USA South for as long as I was, you come to realize that that's the one bid league, and that you have to handle your business. It's not very often we would get 2 teams in. So, I'm a big believer in control what you could control, and that's the circumstance that we were in, and we just didn't take advantage of it. But for the teams, like we had one team that won 14 in a row in one season, and we got knocked out in the semifinals at home. We were a 20-win team. I think that team could have competed with the best in the nation. So from that standpoint, it is frustrating because I thought those players deserved it. But from an inside perspective, it was something that we were talking about as far as we knew what we had to do, and we didn't finish the job. And I think from a coaching standpoint, you put a lot on your own shoulders, and try to take responsibility for that. There's things that we could have did in that game that hopefully could have helped us, but we just didn't finish the job, and it is what it is. But I do think it is frustrating when you put a special season like that together, and you think it should pay off for the guys, and it doesn't. But that was the circumstance we were in, and like I said, I'm a big believer in control what you can control, and just continuing to move forward, and try to use that as inspiration for the years to come.
Coach, I know you never look at the preseason rankings, and I know you don't open up the newspaper or get online or anything like that, but I guess I'll break the bad news to you. So CNU is number 5 in the country preseason. Yep. Randolph-Macon's number 7, Guilford's number 17, and Hampton-Sydney's number 23. I know you start off tomorrow
and,
with
and Maryville's number 20.
Oh yeah,
We opened up with them.
So
Yep.
I noticed tomorrow that you guys have an exhibition at High Point, and then the
Yes, sir.
season gets down to brass tacks. So on November 9th, you play Maryville, what you said it was number 20. November 25th, you play in CNU, number 5. You play Wesleyan. I haven't seen any preseason rankings on them, but they're always good.
They got everybody back. I wouldn't be surprised if they're up there at some point.
Yeah, and then you roll January, Randolph-Macon, Hampton-Sydney, Guilford twice, fortunately or unfortunately. So, good for us in Danville to have a good home game there. So we'll definitely be there for that. But how do you prepare that team this year for that kind of schedule, especially within basically a month's time?
I don't know. Maybe they should get rid of me. Who's scheduling these games, for God's sakes? I'm a big believer in to get to where we want to be, we got to go play the best. And for us to even have an idea of what it's going to be like to compete January through the end of February in the ODAC, you better go out there and challenge yourself in a non-conference to learn about your team, in my opinion. And the fun thing about our non-conference will be we'll play some ranked teams. We'll play some really good teams that will have a chance to maybe be ranked at some point, but they all have different styles. And when you look at that going into conference play, from night to night, you could play a team that wants to press in our league and score 90 points, or you could play a Guilford who has no issue scoring and winning in the 50s. So for us, I like to challenge ourselves with our scheduling to show our guys, like, every single night, you better be ready to go and be consistent in the things that we can control to have a chance to win. It might be some ugly nights, but for me, we learn more about ourselves playing teams like CNU and Maryville and challenging ourselves than, maybe playing somebody that isn't at that level and not learning as much about ourselves or putting ourselves in tough moments like we know that we'll be in January and February.
Well, look, I date myself because, or outdate, post-date, whatever you want to call it, because I still think that teams play the 2-post guy, the 4 and 5 guy, and they have been 1 and 3, dish to the wings and what have you. So I was looking at some of your stats from last year, and the reason why I'm bringing this question up is I noticed that you averaged 58.2 points a game, and then field goal percentage was down to 39%. So is there, just kind of digging into your coaching philosophy, coaching style,
Absolutely.
Are you going to try maybe to get the ball? Do you have a point guard that you're going to try to get into the lane and dish, or try to get that ball to the 2-foot range and trying to, post a big man this year, or just kind of speed up tempo?
Yeah, honestly, I'm old school myself. I'm a big believer in defense, rebounding, toughness, culture, no one being above each other. I believe in little things leading to big things. But I'll just be honest, we weren't ready to be a very good team last year. And the last 2 years, unfortunately, we've lost several seniors to end season-ending injuries, and we've had to play several young guys that, when you're going against teams like Macon or CNU or Hampton-Sydney, who had 5 seniors and 4 graduate seniors, and you're playing them with 17 and 18-year-old freshmen, not the formula for success for consistency. So for us, there was a lot of games that if you were to go and watch, turn on at the 5-minute mark late in the game, there's opportunities for us to win games, and we weren't able to execute or weren't tough enough to stay within our offense to get the shots that we needed. And it's just continuously player development, continuously understanding what we have to do in those moments. And I don't think it's rewriting the culture of what we're trying to do. It's trying to get those guys to understand, how is winning done in those situations? How disciplined do you have to stay in those situations and make sure that you continue to do your job? And those are things that we're hoping the experience helps us with. A lot of guys that played as freshmen last year returning. And we think we have some pieces of freshmen that are ready to come in and contribute right away and be in the mix. So, I think it's just continually coaching, continually watching film and teaching them why situations and what we're doing or what we can fix in situations to be better. But I think a lot of that has to come with experience and being in those situations. And I'm hoping a year of experience with a guy that played with a lot of young guys that played a lot of minutes last year helps us in those situations to be tougher in late game situations to finish the right way.
Well, I know Devin will probably hit on your roster in just a few moments, but I know you've got to be ecstatic and just excited about, I was looking at some of the returning players. In my calculations, it looks like you're bringing back 58% of your scoring and 48% of your rebounding. And I looked at the stats. You only averaged a rebound less than your opponent last year, so you got to be excited about that.
Yeah, I am. And I thought we were really a soft team at times last year, to be honest with you. I didn't think we did a great job rebounding the ball. So for us to be right there on the backboards, to me, the big thing is we hurt ourselves a lot with turnovers, being a young group, not being able to get into our offense, especially late in games. But if we can continue or win the backboards on a regular basis, now that we're a little bit more mature and hopefully a little bit tougher mentally, and be more efficient with the ball in our hands from a turnover standpoint, I think that's going to help us moving forward to have a chance to win late in games versus some good teams, hopefully.
So Coach, you've already kind of alluded to this with your previous answers, but I count 8 freshmen on the roster from last year. But you do return what I would call the big 3: Jamison Graves, Jason Sellers, and Bryce Shaw from last year's team. Got a little bit more continuity on the roster this year. Just talk about the importance of having those 3 guys back, and then any contributors from the team last year who might be able to step up for you this year.
Yeah, anytime you get a guy like Jason back, especially a 50-year guy that's been a part of the program, he's been a part of winning teams. He was on part of the NCAA team that went to the NCAA tournament and won a championship that year. He was a sophomore, I believe, that year, if I'm not mistaken. So to have that type of experience, to be a voice and a leader for our younger guys, to show them the way of how winning is done and, how you prepare yourself every day, I think is really important. I think Clay Hodges as a senior leader for us maybe isn't going to light your world on fire from a statistical standpoint, but is just consistent as far as holding guys accountable and just being that voice in practice every day. I think that leadership is really important when you have a young group. And then Bryce and Jamison, their ability to score and, put pressure on the defense as well as be good defenders on the other side of the floor and affect that side of the floor for us will be something that we expect them to lead the way with some of our younger guys that will be joining the club as well this year. So I think, other guys as part of that sophomore class, I think Josh Lewis has done a great job expanding his game and really learning what his role is. I'm hoping he can help us in some ways this year. You got Terrell Fitzgerald is finding his way of what his niche is as a player. And if they could just buy into what their roles are and what they could be really good at, I think they'll find a way to help us. And then I honestly think we have 3 or 4 freshmen that will have a chance to play right away starting tomorrow night and moving into Maryville as well that we're excited about, that we just got to keep growing and keep building together. So excited, good group of guys. They really care about each other. But I think for us, if we keep doing what we're doing, I think our best basketball will hopefully be played in January and February rather than November and December.
Gotcha. And I got kind of a 2. Sorry, Big Greg, to cut you off there.
You're
I
good.
got kind of
Emmy.
Sorry, cut both of y'all off. Got the 2 for 1. Coach, I have kind of a 2-part question here. So you talked about some recruits coming in. Jackson Sellers is a guy I've liked who's got a good story too coming into Averett. Mason Mitchell, a guy with good length, ability to shoot, can ball handle, also rebound. Jalen Chambers, a guy who's got some good size, takes pride on the defensive end. Talk about, the freshmen who are coming in, any guys who you're expecting to contribute a little bit. And then also we talked before you got on the podcast, you're a native of the Bronx. So when I think of New York City basketball, I think of down and dirty, gritty, hard-nosed basketball. Is that a philosophy or mindset that you try to instill in these players and also in recruiting?
Yeah, as far as our freshmen are concerned, I think Jackson Sellers. We won't see him tomorrow night. He's coming back from an injury, but I do think that he is somebody that we are extremely excited about. Think that he's going to have an impact for us this year, and be a guy that be a leader in our program moving forward. Mason Mitchell, another guy, could see him being a big part of our rotation right away tomorrow. Zach Scogan, another guy that just does things right and is consistent every day. Jalen Chambers, great energy guy, great personality, competitor. And then we got some other guys that people know, Day, Davian Bowens. He's a guy that's a transfer that is a passionate, energized young man that comes from a tough background. That I think is going to bring a little chip on his shoulder to our team. So really excited about this group. Biggest thing is just staying focused on one day at a time and making sure we're taking care of what we need to do in practice. As far as the toughness and stuff, like for me, that's how I had to play. Like, I don't know, like when I was at Virginia Wesleyan, I never dunked. I'm 6'3", 220 pounds when I played. I couldn't play above the rim. But if you go back and look, I was always top 3 in rebounding in the ODAC. I never minded playing bigger guys than me. I had a lot of heart, a lot of passion. And to me, those are things that I try to instill in our guys every day. And how I coach. Like, if you've ever seen me coach, how I am in here in the office is way different than how I am on the floor. I ask my guys to bring great energy, great focus. I think that starts with me and the way that I am every day in practice. So I think we try to, the old saying, teams that take after their coach, usually you see some, that relate to the floor and see success. I'm hoping the best teams that we have had here that we've won championships with, I think have taken on that personality of toughness, togetherness, putting themselves on the line for the guy next to them. And that's how I was as a player. And I'm hoping that in today's day, which is hard to do because everything's about like me and now and, instant gratification. I'm hoping if we could get these young guys to believe and buy into that, not only will it help them be successful now, but when they get into the real world in life and it smacks them in the face, they're tough enough to get through it and mentally tough enough to keep moving forward and provide the way they need to.
Hey, Greg, before you ask your question, I had to give Devin a little credit there because that was a great question about the Bronx. I thought he was getting ready to say something about point guards such as Kenny Anderson or Kenny Smith or just some others that just come out of the Bronx. So that was an awesome question, Dev. Great question.
Absolutely.
Let's save the congratulations after the podcast. Let's get weird. Coach, I have a two-parter. My last two for me. Kind of looking at your recruiting philosophy, and you talked about defense and rebounding. I see you have, I think 6 or 7 guys who are 6'5" and taller. Is that something that you kind of look for when you're recruiting? Is the length there? And then also with Danville, where it is, right on that border of Virginia or North Carolina, how nice is it to have Virginia or Lynchburg and Roanoke, and then south you have Raleigh, Durham. Just a lot of places you can go to recruit. So how is that for you working out?
Yeah, well, in recruiting, we want to be versatile. I think the ODAC, especially, like there's some big boys in the ODAC, and at guards, you got guys that are 6'5", 220, 230. You got some post players that are 6'8", and big bodies down there. So for us, we want to have good length and versatility so that we have multiple guys that can defend multiple positions on the floor. So we really look for that versatility in our recruiting style. Big thing is we try to really hit up practices as well as games. Obviously, games is what you got to be seen at, but really going and see a kid's work ethic in practice and how they take coaching. That's a big part of our philosophy, because if you don't like to practice a certain way, there's a tough program to be a part of. So for us, really learning and building that relationship with our guys through the recruiting process to make sure it's the right fit is really important. And then, we feel like we're in a great location. We're 2 hours from Charlotte, an hour and a half from Raleigh. We're an hour from Greensboro, hour and a half from Roanoke. Me and Coach Lewis both have connections out in Virginia Beach and Richmond, so we're able to get out that way as well. So both Virginia and North Carolina have been phenomenal for us to recruit. And recently we've had success with getting guys like Mason Mitchell, Day out of South Carolina. So we've been able to hit there because that's not too bad of a ride for us either. So just making sure we're doing our homework and trying to find maybe some diamonds in the rough that, some people don't want to travel to. It's just brutal with recruiting in the ODAC as well, because, you got Hampton, Sydney, Macon, Guilford, Lynchburg, Randolph, all these schools, they're all hitting the same places. And then if you go out to Virginia Wesleyan and CNU out in the beach and the Richmond, like everyone's going after the same thing. So can we find areas out in South Carolina or the western part of North Carolina that maybe we could find somebody out those ways as well? So always trying to, find a diamond in the rough somewhere as well.
And Coach, I'm not trying to throw any kind of dirt on the grave or nothing like that, but piggybacking on what you just said, and I wasn't a firm believer of this until basically yesterday, and I'm going to use this as an example of the way that not only D3 but the ODAC has grown. But using Guilford as an example with Nick Farrar, who was on the NC State recruiting board and played at UNC Wilmington, here he comes into Guilford basically because the Proctor brothers played with him in high school, but also he was that D1 recruit as well. So it just goes to show me that the mindset of these kids now is not just set on the D1 aspect of everything, and that, hey, where's the best place for me to go and play?
Especially through the transfer portal too, more and more guys, if they don't enjoy that first, I'm not going to get into the logistics of it, but if it doesn't go right for them in that first year, what their friends are telling them and experiences too, and the guys that they've played with to have a good experience, I think they're more open-minded to, going to that level and and the ODAC produces guys that play overseas and that have careers playing professionally. So when you're able to, use that as a recruiting tool, and you got some guy that's talented that maybe just didn't enjoy his experience or things didn't go the way he thought, you're still giving that young man an opportunity to reach a goal that maybe he has or go from there. But yeah, the transfer portal, I think it's opened more guys' eyes to wanting to enjoy the experience that they're having, and I think just be around people that they enjoy being around as well, and former teammates in that experience.
Coach, just to let you know, if we ever do make it, if we make it to Pat McAfee level or Barstool, whatever it is, we're coming back to Averett, set up an NIL fund for you. Don't worry.
Let's go, man. Come on. That's what I need around here. Hey, at that point, just hire me to come on as one of those guys like McAfee. I can do all that goofball stuff and
there you go.
Be acting crazy. There you go.
We got to take care of our hometown. But any other questions for Coach?
I'm good. I just look, Coach, and I say this with all the sincerity, and I kind of relay this to you. If we can help you out in any way we can, because the main thing about our podcast was to help promote the Southside athletics and, get some recognition for some of these, especially high school kids that we see or we talk to on the area level, the state level, what have you. So if it's anybody that you need us to take a look at, hey, we might not be the expert in the field, but we can tell you whether or not somebody can play ball. That's for sure. So let us know. And we'll get out and look at them.
I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me on to talk a little bit. This was awesome.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
And our last question we end with every interview, as far as this preview goes, kind of open-ended question. So this is kind of your interpretation here. If Averett is to be successful this year, they have to do what?
Just one thing?
Anything and everything.
No, I think we have to be a low turnover team. I think we just stop hurting ourselves. It's just something in the past that, just the last 2 years, averaging almost 15 to 17 turnovers a game in this league. You're just limiting your chances to be successful. So I think limiting the opportunities of hurting ourselves, and I think we'll have a chance to be in games, and then hopefully we can find a way to win close games. So for us, it's just, taking care of ourselves, being who we need to be, and limiting our own mistakes so that we have a chance to be successful.
Well, Coach, we do appreciate it. We wish you guys all the luck this year and bring home some wins.
Appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much for having me, and hopefully next time we talk, we'll have a couple of those wins that you're talking about.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Coach.
you guys.
Appreciate you.